So this is my first session with my draw for the 2020 Georgia Tip Challenge. This is tag number 5419. He is a super curious and calm, laid-back Mustang. I do like his demeanor and overall vibes a lot. And I spent the beginning of our session doing a lot of reaching out with the stick or whip. And I just wanted to see if he was curious enough to reach out and touch it. And whenever he did, I would reward him by backing off. That's a release of pressure for him. And as he starts to get more comfortable with it, I'll start reaching out more with the whip. I'll start sliding up his nose just a little bit more and just start building up to touching him on the face with the whip. And that is later on going to coordinate with a hand touching him. So to mix things up a little bit, I took a second to reach out to him with my hand just to see what he would do. He was super curious and sweet. I backed off and just went right back to some whip work. I want him to be comfortable with the whip rubbing him on his face and the sides of his neck before I go up and start touching him with my hand. Transferring the physical contact from the whip to my hand didn't seem to faze him too much. He did pretty well with that transfer, and he was pretty itchy on that left side of his face, and I let him rub it on my hand a little bit just because he's trying to get comfortable with me. And I'm going to spend some time just rubbing on his face and getting him more comfortable. And with him nibbling at my hand, I'm not going to reprimand him for that right now because I don't want to set him back. He's already a wild horse, so setting him back would push him back a lot further. The most that I'll do is use that hand, and when he goes to nibble, kind of push it against him to push his nose away. But that's the most I'm going to do right now. So this is our second session for the day. I went back and was working on him getting more comfortable with his neck being rubbed, and I started introducing two hands to prepare him for his neck tag removal. And I start moving my hands before I even get to their neck because I don't want them to get scared. Usually two hands is kind of intimidating for them at first, but he does really well with that. And I think it's really cute how he watched me after I walked away. On top of getting him desensitized to being touched on his neck and whatnot, we're also positioned differently now. I'm not standing in front of him. He's learning about me standing next to him. And like I said, like all these little bits and things that seem so small can be really intimidating to them. So I wanted to make sure I got him nice and comfortable before I started asking for more. And I just wanted to be nice and relaxed when I'm next to him and rubbing on him. So now that he's comfortable with me next to him and both hands rubbing on him, I decided to take a step forward and work on getting his neck tag off. And it was actually pretty easy. Most of my neck tags are filled with dirt and mud and frayed at the end of the rope and just super difficult to get out. His is more fresh considering he was gathered out of the wild less than a year ago, so it didn't take too much work for me. And he was pretty good about me doing that. I noticed he got a little bit nervous and he took his head away, so I just went back to rubbing on him. And then when he seemed to be comfortable again, I just worked on getting that off. And he was super good for this. You know, there's a rope moving around his throat. He can definitely feel that I'm doing something, but he kept himself together really well. So to end our second session of the day, he had his neck tag removed, and he can officially claim his name, which is Denali, which means great one, and I really do think it's fitting for him. So after a few hours of break time for Denali, it was time for our third session of the day, and now I was going to introduce haltering. So after I let them check out the halter, I then go to rubbing him with the halter. I want him to feel it, and I'm really just using my hand, and the halter is close by and touching him very lightly. And then I'm going to go and directly take the halter and just rub it by itself on his face. As you can see, he doesn't have a care in the world about it. And then I move to the side of his neck and get him nice and comfortable with it rubbing him there. Now I want to make sure that whatever I did on the other side, I'm going to do on the opposite side as well. And he's pretty comfortable with being rubbed by the halter. So I'm going to move to the next step, and that's introducing the noseband by itself. So starting to introduce the noseband, I slide it slightly over his muzzle, but not completely. And his release is me backing off. And I'm just going to slowly build up to putting it completely over his nose and just do a lot of back and forth with it. And once he's letting it slide over his nose, I will eventually start increasing the time frame. I want him to be able to hold his nose in the noseband piece without getting worried, and I just want him to stand still and be comfortable. And then that's when I can move on to the next step. So as you can see, I'm pretty much breaking down each step of the haltering process. I start out with the noseband, and then I move on to the piece that goes over their neck. And I'm just sliding that over, getting him comfortable with that moving around up there. And he does pretty well with that. And then I'm going to start combining the two together. I'll put the noseband piece over him and then add the long rope that's going to go over him. So right here is the first time that he gets kind of nervous with the noseband. And what I'm doing is I'm holding it there as best as I can so that as soon as he stops moving, I can release it and he learns from that release of pressure.
Good job.
So this is the final haltering part of our session, and he did take his head away just a little bit, but we had been working on it enough that we kind of solved all that, so I just stuck with it. He only took one step, and he went back to standing still and being patient, so I decided to finish up haltering him there, and he did really good after that. It did take a little bit to get him used to me tying the rope. That did stress him out just a little bit, and afterwards I made sure to rub on him quite a bit. I didn't want to just halter him and leave him. But he did really good, and he covered a lot in this first day.